And let's see. Okay, what do you all see? Mike, tell me what you see.
We see your first slide, innocent victims, wildlife and plastics.
Okay, that's what you see.
Yes.
All right, now hold on a minute. Something's wrong on my end now. Just a minute. I should have. Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being heroes. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. We need to be protecting the wildlife as much as we possibly can. We've been warming the globe. We're on in the middle of, or at the beginning parts of a mass extinction events. Turtles are going to be involved in all of that, and we've got to do everything we possibly can to not have that happen. And plastics, that's a big thing, and we have got to do something as a society. And I know that listening to a talk on plastics is not something you want to do when you're also worrying about pandemics and climate change and all the other things, but it all goes together, and that's really what we need to be worrying about here. So let me go to the next slide. Nope, that's not working. Sorry, hold on a minute. You always have problems. Come on now. There it goes. Okay. Wrong way now. Now I need to go back the other way. There we go. Okay. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about today is fun facts about plastics. Well, for some people it'll be fun, for other people it's not. Then I'm going to move on and talk about wildlife and plastics. I also give a talk on climate change, and people say that's a tough talk to listen to. But this one is a tougher talk, in my opinion, because we're having to see what these poor innocent victims are having to live with because of what we are doing to the planet with the plastics. It's a really tough time. So the second portion of this talk is going to be tough. But the third portion, I promise you, is going to be much, much more hopeful. It's going to tell you about things that all of us must do to help these poor innocent victims and to decrease the amount of plastics that we actually are using. So let's get started and talk about the fun facts of plastics. Plastics were invented, or actually happened upon, by Leo Baekeman. He invented the plastic polymer. He also did the foam rubber polymer in the early 1900s. And if you look at how much plastic we actually have in the world, on the x-axis is year, on the y-axis is tons of plastic. So it basically didn't really start going very high until 1950. And then come 1950, it just started skyrocketing, just absolutely skyrocketing. And now it is amazing to think, but the estimate for what we are going to have by 2050 is 1,750 million tons of plastic at that point. That's pretty tough. So right now we have 435. They're talking about the fact that we are going to quadruple the amount of plastic that we are using. We can't do that, folks. We can't do that for climate change reasons, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. We can't do that for all the pollution that it's going to be causing. So we've got to do something about that, and we can, and we will. Now, these are all big numbers, and I have a little bit of trouble with great big numbers because I need to put them into something that I understand that actually is relevant to me. So what I've done is, well, first of all, since 1907, since plastic was first discovered, we now have 9.2 billion tons of plastic on the planet. That's a lot. Now, how much is that? It's equivalent to 25,000 Empire State Buildings. That's how much it weighs. 25,000 Empire State Buildings. That's a lot of plastic. Now, of the 9.2 billion tons of plastic, 7 billion tons is now waste. So some of it is not complete waste because we're still using it, but 7 billion tons. So let's put that into something that I can understand. Again, the Empire State Building, that is the weight of 19,000 Empire State Buildings. That's how much waste we have to somehow deal with. Now, the reason that this is a climate change issue is because plastic is made from oil and gas. And 6% of our oil that is produced, oil and gas that is produced, is used for plastics. Now, we want to be at net zero CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. But if we have that much plastic being made, we are going to be having a lot of oil being dug up and used, and that is not going to be good. So we've got to somehow figure out how to go to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, while at the same time having 1,750 million tons of plastic being produced that year. The trouble with that is that 1 pound of plastic, when you make 1 pound of plastic, you actually emit six pounds of CO2. So the next time you're holding a pound of plastic in your hand, you can think that there's 6 pounds of CO2 floating around in our atmosphere due to that 1 pound of plastic. That's a lot. Now, the EPA report came out and said every bit of plastic that ever was made still exists. Well, plastic doesn't biodegrade, not at all. This really isn't a true statement because 12% of the plastic that we've ever made has been incinerated. Incinerating plastic is not good for the environment, is not good for you. The toxins put out by that is just absolutely atrocious. So you really don't want to incinerate plastic at all. But 9% has been recycled. That's it. 9% has been recycled. So that means 79% of the plastic that has ever been made is either in the oceans, in the landfills, or on our lands. That's a lot of plastic, folks, that's just floating around out there. This is what happens to plastic. All it does is it breaks down, and it breaks down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. Now, we've got to do something to stop this. We've got to stop producing so much plastic. And 10 states have actually banned plastic bags, which is a really good thing. Hawaii is obvious. They don't want to put the plastic bags out into the oceans. But California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington have all banned plastic bags. Now, some of those, Connecticut for one, and I don't remember the other ones, when the pandemic hit, they took that banning off of plastic bags for a while, but they did go back and put it back on fairly recently. But anyway, 10 states have banned the banning of plastic bags. Florida, on the other hand, has banned the banning of plastic bags. So in Florida, we cannot ban plastic bags. Coral Gables, the city of Coral Gables, said, that's not fair. We are going to ban our plastic bags. They got taken to court by the plastic folks. It went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, and Coral Gables lost. We cannot ban the banning of plastic bags in Florida. And we're not alone. There are 17 other states, you can go through and look at them, that have banned the banning of plastic bags. If you don't think the oil and gas lobby is strong in different states, look at those states where it is very strong. It's an oil and gas lobby that has been pushing this through, and they are very strong. And we have got to somehow say enough is enough already and undo this, but it's going to take a while. So let's see, shoppers worldwide use about 500 billion single-use plastic bags each year. 500 billion? Holy mackerel. No wonder we have plastic bags blowing around everywhere. About 1 million plastic bags are used every single minute worldwide. That's a staggering thought too. And annually, about 150 plastic bags are used per person worldwide. There are many places where people cannot use plastic bags because they're not available to them. So there are some places where people use a lot of plastic bags, and that happens to be the US is one of them. Now, Ireland put a 15-cent, that's all it was a 15-cent tax on plastic bags. And it caused a 90% drop in plastic bags. So putting a tax on it works much better than paying for you to bring your own bags. So you go to Target, for instance, and you take your own bags, you get 5 cents back, but people don't care about that. But if they're taxed, it makes a difference. So we do know what to do. We do know that we can change things. We just have to want to change them to do it. We need the political will, and we don't have that political will right now. Now, the average annual plastic bag usage in the US per person is 365 bags a year. 1 a day per person is what the average is. Holy mackerel, 1 a day. That's just horrific to me. It's just horrific. Now, the average annual plastic bag usage in Denmark per person, think about it. What do you think that number is? Just think about it. It's really quite small. 4. If Denmark, which is a developed country, can get away with using 4 plastic bags a year per person, we can do the same thing. It is not going to hurt our standard of living at all if we stop using plastic bags. Now, besides plastic bags, we use plastic bottles in the US. Americans purchased 346 plastic bottles per person in 2015. Per person in 2015. That is a lot of bottles. And in the US, except for places like Flint, Michigan, for instance, our water is fine. There is absolutely no reason for us to need to use bottled water. If you need to use bottled water, then take a bottle that is washable and reusable and fill it up under a water spigot and use that. There is no reason that you need to be using plastic bottles here in the US. We all can change that. Now, people will say, well, but that's okay. I use those plastic bottles, but I recycle them all. Well, only 9%, 32 of the 346 bottles were recycled in 2015. And the same still is true today. We only are recycling about 9%. And actually it's lower than that now because it's so much harder to get things recycled now. We'll talk about that. So the single-use plastic is by far the worst. Plastic bags, plastic straws, plastic bottles, plastic wrap, they are all absolutely horrific. And all of those, we need to stop using. And we can do that. We just have to have the political will to do it. Now, the other thing that is absolutely the worst is a thing called microfibers. Now, we all wash our clothes, and in the dryer, we have lint filters, and those lint filters get filled up after each use, and you have to clean them out. Well, the same amount of lint that goes out in the dryer goes out in the washing machine. We just don't have washing machine filters. And all of those little tiny fibers that are coming from polyester, nylon, those type of things are microfibers. And the microfibers now are all over in our oceans, in our fresh water, everywhere. It's everywhere. So microfibers are the next huge elephant in the room. So we need to do something about the microfibers. Again, we can, we just have to make a decision to do it. So 8.8 million tons of plastic is dumped into our oceans every year. 8.8 million tons every single year. Okay, here we go with another big number. So let's go back to the Empire State Building. So 8.8 million tons are going into the ocean. Now let's assume that we have 8.8 million tons of Lego bricks. My stepson loved Lego bricks. Okay, how many Empire State Buildings could we make out of 8.8 million tons of Lego bricks? 19 life-size Empire State Buildings with some left over. That's a very, very sobering thought. That's a lot of plastic going into the ocean every single year. If it were one time or two times, that maybe, but every single year, holy moly. Now, this is where the plastics, actually plastic islands, actually are occurring in the oceans. And what happens is they get trapped by the gyres. These are called gyres. And we've got 5 gyres in our oceans. The primary one is the North Pacific Gyre. And what happens is that the plastic gets captured inside of those gyres, and it's very hard for it to get out. And the North Pacific Gyre has just been putting more and more and more plastics into it, and it is huge. It is absolutely huge. So the other gyres create plastic islands, but not nearly as large as those that are in the North Pacific, because it comes from America and from Asia and a bit from Australia also. So it's getting hit by a lot of different nations. Now, the oceans are not the only places where we're finding plastics. We have, oh, no, it's not going to move again. Shoot. All right, there it goes. Okay, so microplastics were found in the Antarctic sea ice in 2009. And microplastics were discovered near the summit of Mount Everest in 2020. And the pandemic hasn't helped much unless you're a mouse. Free hammocks all over the town. It's a miracle. Well, you guys know different from that. You've been on the coast. You know what it looks like. People are throwing their masks down. They're not cutting the ear circles through so that they're getting stuck on birds' necks and on birds' legs and all sorts of places. So the pandemic has really caused quite a bit of increase in the amount of plastics on our coastlines. Now, plastics are not just plastics, because they actually absorb, like a sponge, they absorb toxins. And here's a list of many of the toxins. It's not nowhere near an exclusive list. But there's some pretty horrible things. Dioxin's on there, DDT is on there. It's pretty horrible. And what happens is that the plastics absorb these toxins into them and hold it in there. And then what happens to all of that? Well, in North America, infants are exposed to about 1 million microplastic particles a day. So if you have an infant, please don't heat their milk up in a plastic bottle. Heat it up in a glass bottle. They are getting a lot of microplastics. And a brand new study just came out, and they examined only 3% of placentas, only 3% of the placentas. And in that, they found in 4 of the 6 placentas that they examined, they actually found microplastics. So it is getting inside of our bodies. And a brand new study that came out that my brother told me about is indeed that we actually here in the US, we consume about a credit card's worth of plastics every week. Think about eating your credit card. That's not a nice thing to think about. And then add on top of that, that this is getting into you, the green lights here on this slide are showing you the microplastics. They have found them in the livers, they have found them in the kidneys. Now remember, I said the plastics absorb toxins. So if those plastics had DDT on them or dioxin on them that cause cancer, that's not a good thing to have happen. So now, where in the world is all of this plastic that we are eating coming from? Well, they did a study of sea salt, and it was all across America. And they wanted to see how much of the sea salt actually had microplastics in it. And after they did the study, they didn't have to do any statistics on it because 100% of the samples had microplastics in the sea salt, 100%. I gave this talk once, and a woman afterwards said, my sea salt doesn't have microplastics in it. I said, well, I beg to differ. And then about 4 days later, she sent me an email, and she said she went home. She didn't believe me. She went home and took her sea salt and put it in a bowl, filled the bowl up with water, let all the salt melt, and lo and behold, she had microplastics in the bottom of her bowl too. And she sent me an email about it, and I really appreciated that. So stop eating sea salt. If something has sea salt in it, it also has microplastics in it. So you really don't want to eat sea salt. You also need to be thinking twice about eating filter feeders, oysters, clams, other filter feeders, things like sardines. You really, really don't want to be eating all of that. The other thing too is think about where you are. Why does that keep happening? Let's see. There we go. You don't want to be drinking tea that is coming from plasticized tea bags, because this is one of the places that you get a lot of plastic from, microplastics from. So when you have a nylon tea bag or a PET tea bag, please refuse it. Don't take it. You do not want that plastic inside of you. You really, truly, truly do not. And then there's this other source of plastics is there's 640,000 tons of fishing equipment that is lost or abandoned annually. And I was really pleased to hear that you all are working on the abandoned crab pots. We need to be working on this. It's a really, really tough situation. Can you imagine this poor whale trying to live its life with its tail completely wound around all of this? There's nothing it can do about it other than living its life that way. We have caused that, and it is pretty disgusting to me. There is good news. They have found a new super enzyme that eats plastic bottles 6 times faster. Woohoo! So we're working on it. We're trying to fix it. We're trying a way to get us out of this, but it's going to take some time. It's not an easy problem to fix at all, but we have got an awful lot of plastic in our world. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about wildlife and plastics. And there are 5 different types of animals that are affected dramatically by in the oceans by plastics. Sea turtles, that's top on the list. Seals and sea lions, seabirds, fish in general, and then cetaceans. So now let's talk about sea turtles. You can see the difference, but a turtle just doesn't. And that's why plastic bags in the ocean are so bad for turtles. 50%, it is estimated that 50% of all sea turtles have ingested plastics. I would wager a guess that it's probably higher than that, but that is what the report said, the scientific report I was reading said. It's 50%. 15% of loggerhead sea turtle young are dying because they're ingesting plastics. We can't do this. This is an endangered species. We are losing 15% because they're ingesting plastics. We're not going to be able to keep them around if it's that high. We've got to do something, and we can do something about that. And this green turtle was really lucky. It was seen by a photographer, the person who took this picture. That person was able to cut this turtle out of there. The only thing the turtle could do was go up for air and come back down. It couldn't feed, it couldn't do anything else. It was able to be cut out and freed. And there are success stories, which is really good, but think of all the ones that have been not success stories and have died. The seals and sea lions, they love to play with things. And when they play with things, they get them around their neck. So this is why I say anything that is plastic and circular, cut it open. Anything. Even if you have trash bags that have round handles, cut them, put them in the trash, take the scissors with you and cut them open as you put them in the trash if you want to carry them by that. But here's a poor sea lion that is actually stuck, has this stuff stuck around its neck, and it's going to have to live the rest of its life living with that. Here are others. You can see how long these have been around these guys' necks. Their skin has grown over it, but it causes chafing and it causes bleeding. There are infections and it causes death. Not a fun way to live. And it's been estimated that 60% of all seabirds have eaten plastics. That's a lot. 98% of all albatrosses that have been studied have ingested plastics. This is a picture that was taken by a man named Chris Jordan. This picture is the same, taken by the same person, Chris Jordan. And he is a fabulous photographer that went out to Midway Island to look at the albatrosses and photograph their babies. This is not what he expected to find. He did not expect to find that most of the babies had starved to death because their parents religiously were feeding them. Their parents would go out, it's near the North Pacific Gyre. It would go out, the parents would go out, collect things that they thought were good for them, but they happened to be all plastic, feed the young, and the young all starved to death. So you can see his movie if you ever have an opportunity to see the movie. It is absolutely spectacular. It is very sad, but in the end it is very good because he comes across and tells us what we need to be doing. But his movie is called Midway, Message from the Gyre. So I urge you to watch it if you can. But this is what albatross chicks that were being fed by their parents, what happens to them because they starve to death because of the plastics. And this is the abundance of 2 different albatrosses, wandering albatross on the top, gray-headed albatross on the bottom. And all it's doing is over the years showing how the breeding pairs are dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And I'm 67, and by the time I die, I will bet you that there are many extinction of albatross before I die. That's a sad thing, that albatrosses are going to go extinct on my watch. That's a very sad thing to think of. Now, when we talk about fishes, we have 12,000 to 24,000 tons of plastic are ingested by fish in the North Pacific every single year. Wow, that's a lot. 2/3 of our fish stocks have plastics in them. So you go to the store, may I have a plastic bag, please? It's already inside, no problem. It's funny, but it's not. And 2 nights ago, my husband and I had salmon, and I'm sitting here eating this salmon, thinking, how much plastic are we actually getting? Then the other statistic, which is very sobering to me, is 100% of sperm whales that have been necropsied. And necropsy is a word that means they cut them open and look at them. It's like autopsy for us, but you do a necropsy on species other than humans. And so they looked at the whales by necropsy, and 100% of them had plastic bags in their stomach. There was a sperm whale that died on the coast of Scotland or Ireland. I'm sorry, I don't remember which. Had 220 pounds of plastic in its stomach that it had been carrying around. That's a lot. That's a lot to be carrying around. And then we have this, and that's pretty sad. The species, the individual has to live that way. There's no way it can get that taken off unless it's taken off by a human. And that just doesn't happen. This is a success story. This is our water aquarium, and they're studying the dolphins in the bay. And there was a mother dolphin, and the mother dolphin is over to the left, back behind. There's a man there with yellow on him. He is holding the mother, and the mother knew that the baby was in trouble. The baby is in the arms of the man on the right, and it has the rope coming out of its mouth. The mother knew the baby was in trouble. She knew that these humans at this aquarium would help. So she literally swam her baby to the rescue of these people. So they got in the water, and some held the mom to keep her calm, and the others took the baby and got it untangled from this rope and was able to set it free. Again, it's a success story, but again, how many of them are successful and how many of them just don't have that opportunity? Now, things happen not just in the sea. This is on the coast. This is a black oyster catcher that got the bottom bill stuck in plastic and could no longer feed. So it starved to death. I live out east of I-75 off of Fruitville, and we have Florida sandhill cranes that come to the property. And one day we had a male sandhill crane come, and it had plastic on the bottom of its bill like that. It was a piece of plastic bag, so it could still feed, but it was obviously bothering him because it was flapping around. So I called Save the Seabird and I asked them what to do. And they said, start feeding them cracked corn and hold it in your hand. And eventually it may come and start feeding from your hand. You can grab the plastic bag and try and pull it away. And I did that. It took about 2 weeks to get his courage up to come and feed out of my hand. And the first time I'm sitting there talking to myself, Terry, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And so I grabbed the plastic bag. It scared the sandhill crane. He jumped away, I jumped away. I tried to hold on, but it didn't pull off. So it took me about another 2 or 3 weeks to get him to be brave enough to eat out of my hand again. And I kept saying, Terry, you can do this, Terry, you can do this, Terry, you can do this. So the next time he came and he fed out of my hand, I grabbed the bag and I held on with all of my force, and he was pulling back, and I was, it was a mess. I wish I had a video of it. But anyway, it still didn't work. But about 3 days later, he came and fed again, and it was gone. So maybe I helped just a little bit to get that plastic bag off. I don't know, but it was very traumatic to me, and I know it was very traumatic to him. So that's one thing that happens on the not in the oceans. Here's something else: a red-eared slider that got caught in those god awful can holders. Ah, I hate these. Ever since I was probably 3 years old, I've been cutting these apart. Even the little tiny circles will catch things. So whenever you have one of these, cut it open. Do not throw it away. If you see a piece of trash like this, pick it up and cut it open. It has to be cut open. It has to be, so that this doesn't happen to these wonderfully, wonderfully innocent individuals. They did cut this off and the turtle continued on, but always had a funny shape. It happens to mammals too. This is a deer, a mule deer that has gotten its head stuck in a bottle. It's tough. It can't eat. It's not gonna eat. This is one that just breaks my heart. This is a wolf in India, and they do not have the kind of darts that, you know, in North America we could dart it and put it down and then pull this thing off. They don't have those kind of darts. So this wolf got so emaciated and so weak that it was able to be caught by some rangers. They basically ran it down. 5 rangers ran it down. They were able to pull the bottle off of its head, release it, and it is a success story. It did survive. It was able to get weight back on and continue on. So there are success stories, but how many don't get saved? Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about what we all must do, and we really don't have a choice. We really have to do things. So here is Boyan Slat, and when he was a young kid, he was 16 years old, literally 16 years old, in high school. His father took him to Greece to go scuba diving. And he realized that he saw more pieces of plastic in the ocean than he saw fish. And it upset him a lot. And at 16 years old, he decided he was going to do something about it. So this thing he's holding in his hand, it acts as a boom and it floats on the water. So it actually captures, this is how it's used. The big portion here, this turquoise portion that is kind of in a backward C, is used to actually capture the pieces of plastic, which are the dots. And then a ship will go out and pull all of that out. And that works really well for floating plastic. But the plastic that has already waterlogged and is now down below the surface, it doesn't work at all. And that's the plastic that we have trouble with too now. And we've got to do something about that. And the people who were alive and aware in the 1970s, I bet you all remember the Crying Indian commercial. It was run by the oil and gas companies. They didn't say they were oil and gas companies, obviously, but you had a Native American Indian in a canoe rowing up a river that was just absolutely pristine. And as it got closer and closer to a city, it got more and more littered with plastic. And what the oil and gas company said in this commercial was, it is our fault. It is our fault that all that pollution is there because we're not recycling. We are just throwing it out and it's getting out into our environment. It is our fault. It is not their fault for making the plastic. And we all bought it. We all bought it. I certainly did. I actually helped arrange a recycling project for my Girl Scouts when I saw this. This was a big thing to me. Anyway, what we need to do is we need to stop making all the plastics, and we need to stop using it. So what can we do to stop using plastics? Okay, so what we can do, no more shopping bags. We all can do that. We all can have cloth bags. You store them in the car. I know. All of us have gotten all the way inside the grocery store and then realized we forgot our bags and they're out in the car and we have to walk all the way out to the car, get them. Yes, we do, but we can do it. We all can start with using cloth bags. Or if you absolutely have to, you can use paper, but please don't ever take another plastic shopping bag. Also, please don't use plastic produce bags, the veggie and the fruit bags. This is a little bit harder to do, but what you can do is you can save the plastic bags that you have gotten and take them back each time. Or better yet, go to a place like Trader Joe's that doesn't use plastic bags. They use biodegradable bags. We can all do that. We can. No plastic drinking bottles. Again, in the US, there is no reason for that unless you live in someplace like Flint. It's easy to do, use your own reusable bottles. You can do that. No other types of plastic bottles. Things like Tide comes in horrible plastic bottles. So also orange juice comes in plastic bottles. Well, you can make a decision. You don't buy the orange juice that comes in plastic bottles. You buy the orange juice that comes in paper cartons. And you don't use detergent that comes in plastic bottles. There is a product called True Earth, and the thing is on the left-hand side is actually like an envelope. And inside they have actually made the detergent into sheets, and you tear off different sheets, and one sheet or one there are two sheets on each piece. There's two loads on each piece, so you tear them in half and you put one in for every single load of laundry that you do. When I'm washing our clothes for our exercise, I'll put two strips in. But you can get True Earth online. It comes in a paper envelope and it is no longer made out of plastic. You can also get things in boxes. This is my OxiClean that I use. I use it to help the detergent, and you can buy it in boxes. You can do this. You just have to make the decision to do it. It's possible. We just have to do it. What else can we do? No straws. This is easy to do. We just have to remember, when you sit down at a restaurant, when the pandemic is over, you have to remember to tell your server you do not want straws. There's no reason to use a straw. If you really have to have a straw, then get one that is reusable and cleanable. You can do that. They sell them all over the place. No plastic wrap. We don't have any reason to use plastic wrap anymore at all. You can use silicone bags or dish covers. These are silicone bags. The one on the left is called Zip Top. You can get them at Target. I absolutely love mine. I can put it in the freezer directly into my oven. It's made out of silicone and it opens up quite wide. It's really quite wide. It's easy to clean. My sister-in-law, she uses a thing called Stashers, which is very similar to the thing that's on the right. I have a little bit of trouble with that because they don't open wide enough for me to clean. You can buy Stashers at Bed Bath & Beyond, but there are the silicone makes it wonderful. It can go from freezer to oven, and they close themselves. They're fabulous. I use them all the time, all the time. The other thing I use is I have cloth covers that have elastic in them and they fit over bowls. Those are fabulous. I really enjoy those a lot. And when they get dirty, all I do is I throw them in the washing machine, wash them up, and they're just fine. Or you can use the thing on the right, upper right, is silicone again. I happen to not like these because they're so big. When you put it over it and you put it into a freezer, into the refrigerator, they bump into things and get knocked off. So that's not one of my favorites, but I have friends that use them all the time. The thing that I use all the time is beeswax impregnated cloth. And it is fabulous. It is absolutely wonderful. It molds around just exactly like cling wrap does, but it just comes off and it's easy to clean. Don't put it in hot water because the beeswax will come off of it. You put it when you wash it with soap and cold water. They're easy to wash. Trader Joe's has them. You can get them online. It's fabulous. The only time I found them to be difficult is when I take it out of the refrigerator, spoon something out of the bowl, and then I want to immediately put the top back on it. It's too cold to do that. So I put it in the microwave and nuke it for 3 seconds, literally, put it back on the bowl, and then it'll form fit around it. They're wonderful. I bought mine from a company called ETEE, Edie, and I absolutely love them, but the ones from Trader Joe's work beautifully too. So what else can we do? No styrofoam, anything. Please, please stop using all types of styrofoam. No cups, no plates, no egg cartons. You can buy egg cartons. You can buy your eggs in paper cartons, not in styrofoam and not in plastic, not meat containers. I go to Costco and they would have the wild caught salmon in sitting on styrofoam platters for you to buy. I just can't do it. The other place where you run into styrofoam containers are doggy bags. When we went to restaurants a long time ago, I know it was a long time ago, we're going to be doing it soon again. You wouldn't finish your meal and you'd want a doggy bag, and out they would come with a styrofoam doggy bag. And then I was in the quandary of, now what do I do? Do I not take home my food and take the doggy bag with my food? So what do? I take my own doggy bag containers with me. I put them in a little bag and I take them into the restaurant with me. It just takes some discipline. So you can choose other forms, other cups, other plates, other egg cartons. Buy meat from places like Trader Joe's. They put their meat on things that are recyclable. They're number 2 recyclable. And take your own containers, as I said here. No one-use plastic sandwich bags. You can wash them out, use them numerous times. My poor husband is getting sick and tired of washing all of my Ziploc bags, but that's his problem. We are doing just fine. The other thing is that they do still make wax paper bags, and I have boxes for wax paper bags. Or you use the reusable and sealable silicone bags that I was telling you about earlier. And again, that's a picture of the silicone bags. No microfiber dryer sheets. You can buy paper dryer sheets. Mrs. Myers makes paper sheets. This is a box of 80 paper sheets. They're a little bit expensive, but they work beautifully. I love them. I use them a lot. Or the other thing you can do is not use any dryer sheets, but use wool dryer balls. So you can get them online. You can also get them at Trader Joe's. I know I sound like I have stock in Trader Joe's. I wish I did, but I don't. But you can get them there. The other thing is buy clothing and bedding made of cotton, linen, and hemp. No microfibers, no nylon, no rayon, no polyester. Because when you wash them, the microfibers are going out in the wash, out in the water, and it's getting everywhere in our freshwater lakes, in the oceans, in our rivers, in everything. And it's getting from the fish into us. It goes into the fish through their gills, and it's getting into their tissues, and we don't want that. The other thing is Americans wash clothes very frequently. Try to not wash items unless they really need to be washed. So it's easy. We just need to do it. And I guess as I've gotten older, I love the wrinkly look. So my sister-in-law, we were talking about a long time ago, we were talking about the linen look. and she was saying that she doesn't iron linen. And I said, oh my gosh, how can you not iron linen? This was quite a while ago. And she says, because I actually like the wrinkle look. And now that's how I feel. I take my linen things, I put them in the dryer for maybe 3 minutes maximum, take them out, shake them, hang them up. And I love the wrinkle look. But then I'm 67 years old too, so that's fine. So, and please, 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 this is my biggest plea. Please, anything that is circular and is plastic, cut it open. So if you have garbage bags that have a circular handle, when you take them out there, cut them open, like I said before. Cut open everything that is circular. That includes when you have a disposable mask and it has the ear things on it, that's a circle. Cut it open cut both sides open before you throw it away. Please, it will help the poor innocent victims that are having to endure all of this. So it includes the ear loops too. So here is a baby seal, and you can see it has gotten tangled in something that's circular and it can't get it off. And you can see where it's bleeding, it's going to get infected and it's going to die. Hopefully this one does not, because it was rescued, and this is going to be cut apart and it'll be freed. But there are so many that are not freed. And what happens to these poor innocent victims is they end up dead. And it's because of you and me. It's because of you and me. And we need to stop that. And the thing is, we can't stop it. We just have to do it. So now I want to thank you very much for listening. Here's my name again. And if you want to send me a text, there's my phone number and my email if you want to get in touch with me. So now let me stop sharing my screen. There you all are. Okay, thank you very much.